Hello, this is Christoph Clermont, and today I want to talk about a new feature in version 8.3 of Market Direct Cross Media. And this feature is called Advanced Data Wraps. It's actually a set of extension items which you found way down low in the list of the extension items. This will be released in version 8.3 as beta and later on be finally released. So still feel free to use it. It's in an extremely good state. We are still collecting feedback from the users and hoping to see where there are downfalls and learn and extend that. It's quite a family of items, and what you can do with it, it's huge. One word up front, it's not meant to replace what you do with current forms. Forms are beautiful, forms are important, and they do what they intended to do. They're easy to use. They can adjust to the layout of any theme. So all this is not what advanced data wraps are about. Advanced data wraps are when you run into limitations, when you have to solve very complex problems of your clients, then and these problems can't be solved with the classic forms, and then might be the right point to have a look at the advanced data wraps. And it starts always with the base. So whatever of the items you want to use, you have to put the base first in here, and inside of the base you can use the other items. So let's just start with an input field. So I drag it in here, and I see a pure input field on the right hand side, and it tells me to select a data source, which I can use, which I can do here, down here in the data section. And first of all, I have to select the field type. I can choose from existing database fields, or I can create a new field or variable. So when I select, for example, the first name of my database here, this field will now show the first name. In Submit, I can select either I want to save changes on button click or just on value change. So what I can do is I can actually put that on value change. And if I'm changing the name here from Bernd to Chris and leave the field and reload, it will actually be Chris. So I have changed the value of my campaign database field to Chris here. So I have a direct access to that fields. One important point about accessibility of data via the advanced data wraps. The advanced data wraps are using the API, the cross-media API, which they are basically writing and reading data. To restrict what that API can read, there's a new option in the campaign database section, and this is down here under Web API settings. And what you can do is you can enable the checker for restrict column access. And if you do so, you can then select which fields should be available via the API. So let's go back at the input field. And if we now have a look at the list, it's much shorter. It only has the fields we explicitly allow for the data API to access. It's very recommended to do so to protect your campaigns against any kind of fraud or whatever. So this is the very simple usage of the advanced data wraps. So let's extend this a little. So what we can do is we can also use another item here, which is called text. So the difference to the way you use when you click in the preview and start typing is here that you have to type the text on the left-hand side in a field called data text binding. So that's more than a text, it's a binding. So when I type something in here like hello, and I will likely get an error, and the error will tell me that it can't find the variable hello. So the reason why you can't write any text in here is that this is a JavaScript expression. It literally accepts any kind of JavaScript, but in special, it allows you to work with variables and the data fields you have. So when I write exclamation marks hello plus JavaScript syntax and I press Control space, I get IntelliSense and I can actually pick from the variables. So by selecting the first name and leaving the field, it automatically writes me hello and Chris here. So let me just put this on top. And when I now go to the text box and I type something in, Christoph instead of Chris, it directly updates the other occurrence of the variable first name. This is actually what data binding is all about, that one variable gets distributed over your entire view in real time without reloading the page, without any submit or anything else. So, and since we are halfway anyhow building a form here, let's have a look how to do this properly and how to very easily you can deal with form design. Thanks to another new item, which is called table. Actually, it's called table, but it is the implementation of the new CSS grid feature. You can use this, by the way, also in other parts of the layout. So this is the only item which not necessarily have to be put into the base item. You can put it basically anywhere. But if you put it there, it's extremely helpful. So let's just put the table there and build a form. So what you do is I take a text here, and this text should be my caption. So let's call it first name. And then I drag the first name in here, and I got myself a next caption. They call this last name. And let's put another text field in here and set this to the last name. And since we want to have a proper form, we now set the submit to on button click, which means we don't get this auto submit just because somebody changed the text. You have to press a button. So let me do the same thing with the text box here and say on button click. So let's take a button. So we get another element which we now start using. And as you see, that probably aligns pretty well just by dragging it into the table, which is quite nice. And I will show you how the magic is working behind that. So we got our headline here, which is a little bit lost on top here. So at least let's put some margin in here. And so, let's take a padding. It's a little bit better. So still, when I am now entering something here, it automatically updates my headline. But when I reload the page, it's coming from the database in the original fashion. To really change something, I have to submit this. And once I've submitted and I reload, it's then in the database. So that's how it works. What I can also do is I can set some validation logic here. So I can say validation has value, for example, and then I be able to configure my error message here. So when I go to the last name and I remove the last name entirely, then I get invalid input. When I try to press submit, I'm actually please check all errors before submitting data, which is a message that is displayed in a fashion, in a layout, and because of the text, which I can change in the base item itself. There are really only quite some few settings in the base item, and this is one of the important ones here. It's the validation error appearance, where you can change the font style, the text color and background of that message here, the error message, and you also can change the basic message which is displayed when you press submit and something is invalid. So you can actually make this multilingual or whatever you want. So that's a way how we build a small form here with validation. So when I put something in, like my real name, and I submit this one, it looks pretty nice. The way how that formatting works here is that this table item has actually two layouts in that case here, for mobile and for tablet. And for mobile, we said its column count is 2. For tablet, we put a column count of 3. This one FR, it's a little weird. You can actually read this up anywhere when you read about the CSS grid. It means fraction. So that means if I divide the entire table in 2 parts, each part will be distributed equal. So 50% for the first, 50% for the second. So when I remove that, I got the message here, and when I make this smaller, it automatically sweeps down here and I got a 2-column layout, which is also quite handy. The interesting thing of that table here, of the CSS grid table item, is that you can determine for each of the elements in which column and row there are. So that caption is set to column 1, so it always starts at column 1. The text box is set to column auto, so it takes the next natural column which is available. And then you can set, okay, that should span over 1, 2 more columns. And also I can do the same thing with the row placement and not only with the column placement. And I also can change the cell alignment. So it's pretty simple, but it can get pretty tricky because you actually can move things around depending on the media which you're actually showing. But for building a simple grid layout form here, that is extremely nice, handy, and good to use. So thanks for listening to the first tutorial about the advanced data wraps. We at least built our first form, and I'm looking forward to tell you more about that fascinating technology.